A boy takes notice of a peculiar classmate of his. His classmate has been coming to school wearing pigtails and the girl's uniform, but as far as everyone knows, the classmate is a boy. So the boy who noticed him decides to invite the classmate to a restaurant the boy's older brother runs, thinking he'd make a great addition to the staff and that he is like the other waiters at the cafe. He gets him in uniform, introduces him to the other 3 staff members, and the classmate is told that this is an otokonoko-made cafe. "Does that mean you're calling me a boy?" the classmate asks, nervous. "Are you saying I have to be a boy to be here?" The rest of the staff is confused. Did the owner's younger brother bring a girl in? But everyone at school keeps saying the classmate is a boy. So which is it? Neither. Neither. This causes a chain reaction in the small otokonoko-made cafe, not least of all because one of the staff members hatches from her egg when she no longer has the excuse of being an otokonoko, and when she realizes she doesn't have to ask for permission to be herself. And as for the owner, the person the one who invited our non-binary hero to work here called his brother? Well, she's probably still listed that way in her family registry, and it'll take a bit for her younger brother to realize he should just be calling her his sister. This is how Fukakai na Boku no Subete o, shortened to Fukabaku by its adoring fans, which I count myself among, and localized by 7Cs as Love Me For Who I Am, begins. Transfem Metro finale. This is a big one. Let's go! So, Fukaboku is what this has all been leading up to from the previous episodes. If you look at the progression, we go from 2 trans girls that don't transition to one that socially transitions during this time skip before the final chapter, to one that transitions 2/3 of the way into the manga, to one transitioning at the start, to this. We get no less than 3, count them, 3 trans women on the page, unambiguously existing as trans women. There's the aforementioned cafe owner, the older sister of one of our protagonists. There's the cafe owner's friend, who shows up partway through to introduce the readership to the concept of voice training. And then there's the staff member, who our non-binary protagonist forced to hatch through their refusal of the traditional greeting. And it is so sweet to see on the page as the gears in her head are turning that she can just use watashi for herself. No need for permission. She can use what is considered the feminine I and call herself a girl. And the way she lights up when she realizes it is amazing. I think her and Marika from Boku no Hentai would have a lot to talk about, considering they both become princesses in behavior. Speaking of staff members though, what a colorful bunch of characters they are! The 3 senior waitresses are especially great. Each of them has a different reason for why they dress femme. There's the obvious trans girl using it as an excuse, like a bunch of femboys do before they admit that they just are girls. Rip to the weak ones who cannot handle Bridget finally getting to say she's a girl after 20 years. She did not want to admit that she just wants to be a girl out there, at home, at school, because she thinks it would be selfish of her, and she keeps thinking it until she's told she doesn't have to ask permission to be herself, and that being yourself isn't selfish. Being yourself is never selfish, no matter what anyone tells you. And although we do not see it on the page, we do hear from her later on that her parents are supportive, not just passively, but actively assisting her with transitioning. Then there's the gay dude, who decided that to avoid homophobic harassment when him and his boyfriend are out in public, he'd cross-dress so they look like a straight couple at first glance, and that with the owner being a trans woman that's involved with queer activism in town, that he would not have to be scared to talk about his love. But he still is a guy, and in a less conservative society, he would hold hands with his boyfriend and make it obvious that they're two gay dudes. The last of the original three is a delightful chaos gremlin who doesn't have a deeper reason. He's a cosplayer, and he gets really into character when he cosplays. So he just loves this job where he cosplays as a femboy maid at a femboy maid cafe. Later, a maid cafe with 2 boys, a girl, and then NB staff as waitresses. Less sketchy than femboy maid cafe, admittedly, but I'll be damned if I misgender Mogumo, which is the name of the NB, or the trans girl. The cosplayer is also the oldest of the staff outside the owner, and is really academic and smart and dependable. Straight girls, get you a boy wife. They'll dress as a cat girl on the weekends for shits and giggles and come home with a 6-figure... No, wait, no, hold on. Yen conversion. 8-figure salary from being the smartest fucker in the room. And unlike the previously covered manga, excluding Kanojo, this one acknowledges the wider queer community more explicitly. One of the smaller arcs is Mogumo's best friend, using them as a surrogate girl to crush on. But they're not a girl, so it's fine to crush on them. It still doesn't make her a lesbian that she's into Mogumo. And then Mogumo calls her out. And she has to admit she's gay. And her and Mogumo and the trans girl all go to a pride event together before that happens, and the lesbian gets a lesbian couple as lesbian moms pretty much afterwards, and it's great. It's just nice that that happens, that that's acknowledged. And then Mogumo's sister shows up. And the manga gets real. And the cute art style is thrown against some seriously heavy topics related to manhood in Japan and womanhood in Japan and the roles of the genders in society. There is a scare of something bad happening, plus a flashback to an extremely dysphoric Mogumo. But I promise you, it all works out towards a happy ending. So even if you get scared, keep reading. You will walk away all the better for it. It's such a shame that the series is so short though. Out of all the ones covered, it has the fewest chapters. Horomusuko has 123. Himegoto Chukyusai no Seifuku has 100. Bokura no Hentai has 41, and Kanojo ni Naritai Kimi to Boku has 50. But Fukaboku only has 28. And that's criminal. While I do support the notion of I want shorter games with worse graphics made by people paid more to work less for every industry, I can't help but want to spend more time with all these lovely characters. And rereading it really doesn't provide that fix. But there's also merit to finishing your work on your own time, of your own volition because you're done telling the story you want to tell. Too often, manga get stretched out for hundreds of chapters, for decades, and the mangaka deteriorates during the creation process and can even die before finishing their work, such as in the case of Miura Kintaro and Berserk. So I'm glad that even though it is short, Fukaboku is finished and available. And all of it is even available in English now, thanks to 7 Seas localizing it. With that, we've reached the planned end of this little series. Due to its chronological nature, I can't really do more episodes in the series. At least unless I fuck around and decide differently in the future because I really like the intro. So, I'm going to use this space to talk about some other manga that are either unfinished or don't quite fit the theme. Let's start with Shimanami Tasogare, Our Dreams at Dusk. The plot is as follows. It deals with a gay dude in a rural seaside town fearing he got outed at school. Contemplating suicide via terminal velocity, he's kept from jumping by a peculiar sight. An agender asexual who is definitely a form of author self-insert literally floats down from the same cliff. The gay team follows them and reaches a safe house for queer people. There's a trans dude, an old gay man, a lesbian couple, and a 6th grader who likes being a girl at the safe house but is still questioning their gender. It is very tender, but also focuses on the gay dude, and, well, he kind of fucks up the trans girl by having her go out to a festival in girl mode, and when she gets groped while he isn't looking, it scares her so much she gives up on ever being a girl until she slowly, cautiously, anxiously returns to the same house and exists as herself again. I'll cover the dishonorable mention now, so we can finish on something good. Dishonorable mention, Jiniro no Genders. If you recall to the episode on Kanojo ni Naritai, in the rant there about mangaka ignoring medical transition, I offhandedly mentioned a manga that has a trans dude take tea, but have the protagonist decide he's cis and straight for convoluted reasons. This manga is Jiniro no Genders. Or Giniro no Genders. The one time I don't know how to fucking say the thing because of the Romaji spelling. And I hate it with every fiber of my being. It is the Persona 4 canon ending of queer manga. The premise is simple. A crossdresser who might or might not be a trans girl, they're questioning that as a handy end of volume chart tells us, has an Instagram where they post pictures of themselves crossdressing. They had made an oath that when they hit 10,000 views, they'd go out in girl mode. Unfortunately for them, they look like a popular idol when they're in girl mode, and some dudes very nearly sexually assault them. They are thankfully stopped before they tore off the crossdresser's underwear and turned a sexual assault into a murder by the arrival of a butch lesbian. The butch lesbian brings the crossdresser to the drag king bar she works at and blackmails him into trying to seduce the guy that is currently dating her bisexual ex-girlfriend. To top it all off, our crossdresser has a gay friend who is obsessed with them but unaware of their cross-dressing. The gay dude is a yandere. That's the only way to say it. Our crossdresser does their best to try and seduce the dude until it is revealed that the guy is a trans dude. The gay dude tries to kill himself and is saved by the crossdresser, who asks to meet the trans dude while they're in guy mode. When he does, he claims that he does not feel any attraction to him when he's a guy, and that proves he's not a trans woman. He asks a girl out. A girl that was the first to follow his cross-dressing Instagram. 10 years later, they have 2 kids, and she's telling them how pretty their daddy looked when he dressed up as a girl. Género no Genders is vile, and if you were to read it, you do yourself a disservice. So don't fucking read it. Instead, read the works of Oshimi Shuzo, a renowned mangaka whose 2 finished works that I've personally read are Aku no Hana and Inside Mari, and whose other work, Chi no Adachi, was covered by Super Eye Patch Wolf in his video The Manga That Breaks People. Aku no Hana is about a boy being tempted into acting evil by a girl in his class, and she has him wear a girl's sports uniform that he stole at one point, the theft of the uniform being the catalyst of his descent into evil. It is a wild psychological ride. You'd think Oshimi-sensei was a neurosurgeon with how deep they go into the heads of their characters. They get in there quite literally in Inside Mari. Inside Mari begins as any other body swap genderbender manga. A college-aged shut-in wakes up in the body of a pretty high school girl that he saw at the convenience store every evening at 9 p.m., buying the same thing every time. After gaining the courage to follow her, not to do anything hurtful to her, but to just be her shadow, he wakes up as her. But when he goes to check if the girl whose body he's in is in his body, he just finds himself. Mari's missing. A classmate of hers notices. A classmate of a different social group than the one Mari was part of, and together they go looking for Mari. I will not spoil the major twist of the series. I think you should experience it firsthand, but it is really the first big thing of Oshimi-sensei's I've read that's as genderfucky as that. Not to say there aren't more, as my dear friend Mordred Transmom on Tumblr highlights in her post summarizing the Oshimi-sensei works she's read, but it has too much of a mystery element and no real trans people to it like Oshimi-sensei's current work, Okaeri Alice, or Welcome Home Alice. The plot is as follows. A guy sees his best friend kiss the girl he likes. The best friend then moves away. When the best friend comes back 3 years later, as they are all entering high school, well, she's given up on being a boy. She's something else, a gorgeous feminine creature that promises the guy an even better experiences than just jerking off like she had taught him in middle school. With all 3 of these teens in the same class, what's going to happen between them? Admittedly, I wish Okaeri Alice was finished already. I wish I could make a full Transfem Metro episode on it, because of one simple thing, the afterword of Volume 5. Here it is.
Girls. When I was in high school, I was obsessed with girls' bodies. I was on the boat of my own body, a boat that I could never get off, a boat of daily masturbation, sexual desire, and my bruised member. From there, in the distance, I saw another boat, that of a girl, and on it was my ideal body. I don't remember when that longing began. I found myself seeking it. At that time, magazines like that, with pictures and manga series, were usually lined up in bookstores. I'd buy them and stare at them behind my parents' backs. Also, I was utterly astonished by the girl dolls made by a man named Hans Belmer, and I was always looking at his photo books. But were the naked girls I saw there objects of my sexual desire? I think not. To me, they were the physical manifestation of my inner self, of who I really am. Somewhere along the way, I had misstepped my path and was trapped in a body that was getting dirtier and dirtier. In my fantasy, I was dissolving the boundary between myself and girlhood, becoming a girl, becoming a doll, getting off the boat of being a man. I'd let myself forget the idea of the man that was masturbating while I masturbated, but the moment I ejaculated, I was brought back to reality, finding myself trapped in the boat of manhood from which I could not escape. But why girls? Was it because I wanted to be far away from men and violence? I always felt alienated and inferior in school and society. I developed a stutter when I was in junior high school, which instilled in me a definite sense of inferiority as a male specimen. As a man, I was pathetic and weak. I was always frightened, yet it seemed like I loved myself many times more than others. I didn't want to face it. I wanted to run. I wanted to go back to the way I was before I was forced to be a man. Were girls the intersection of those desires in reality? But among them, choosing girls who are also women, the object of my sexual desire, would perhaps have meant that I had not quit being a man, after all. So when the chance to have sex with a woman actually came, I forgot all about it, or pretended to forget it, and my mind was filled with the vanity of, as a man, as a male specimen, I must carry through sex impressively. My mind and body were in pieces. I didn't want to make the other person feel good, nor did I want to feel good myself. I only kept repeating the words, I have to do it right, in my frightened, blank mind. I could not do it properly, as I should have. Before the penetration happened, my body had become totally unexcited, and I could not get an erection. Strangely, I had forgotten about the birthmark that had worried me so much. No matter how many times I tried, it didn't work. But eventually, little by little, I started to get it right. The trick I found was to erase my girl self only while I was doing it. To be one machine in a boat of manhood. I am a machine, a sex machine. By telling myself this and pushing my body to the limit, I was finally able to have sex. But every time, the girl in me is wounded, bloodied, and torn to pieces. And then, before I know it, she becomes dim and begins to fade. It's as if she was never there, as if I was always the sex machine. Like, all men are nervous when they have their first time. Often, they can't get an erection. That's how we all grow up. You shouldn't have sex like in porn. But I couldn't forget the girl covered in blood inside me. How could I help her? I always feel some sort of tearing pain when feminism attacks men's unconscious misogyny, because I am exposed for the sin of trying to be a male specimen. I am forcibly confronted with the guilt of hurting the girl inside me. I cannot stop being a man, but I can't be a girl. I can't be a woman. How can I quit being a man? I dream of what sex would be like after I stop being a guy. Sex where no one spills blood. I want to get out of manhood, out of the boat, out of this reality. But if that's possible, or where it is, that I don't know.
I beg of you, somebody please get this bitch some estradiol valorate and a cute dress to spin in before she ends up completely shredding her inner girl. I promise you this, the second Okari Alice finishes, there'll be another episode of Transfem Metro, if only a short one, to yell that it is finished. But for now, this is where it ends. It's not where my hobby of making YouTube videos ends. Mind you, I still have plenty of ideas, but this miniseries is done. I'm proud of it, I'm happy with it, and I hope you enjoyed it. Yes, I genuinely hope you enjoyed this entire 5-part miniseries. I had a lot of fun making it. I didn't learn as much as I hoped I would learn, but it was still a lot of things I got taught of and learned thanks to Transwitch Reviews, Sammy, who did me a massive fucking solid by reading that Volume 5 afterward from Okaeri Alice. Go give her a subscribe, a follow, a watch all her stuff. Her current Kodelka and Shadow Hearts series of reviews is great, as was her entire thing about Final Fantasy XIII. I did not engage with Final Fantasy XIII content really much until I watched her entire series about Final Fantasy XIII and her little Tony Hawk video and stuff. It's just, she has so many good things for you to watch, and she's gonna have more good things. And maybe if she feels like it, I can cameo as a voice in one of her videos. We'll see, we'll find out. But until then, I do seriously hope you enjoyed. And you know what this part is? It's the advertising and Patreon thanks section. Just quickly before I get to the Patreon thanks sections. As last week, when I released this video, was the day before my birthday, I released it November 28th, and my birthday is November 29th. Well, this week, this video falls on Saint Nick's Day, Mikuláš. Czechs get two Christmases, you could say. We get the big one on November 20th, the big one on December 24th, with the presents and the tree and baby Jesus climbing in during the first, when the bell rings and we all rush out and get the presents. And, with the Christmas dinner, carp, potato salad. It's great. It's Christmas. What can you fucking say? Except I'm European. The exploitation of my culture happened thousands of years ago. 1,000 and something years ago, so there's no Slavic stuff for me to miss. And there isn't as violent a thing. No, what am I kidding? What am I saying? There's basically no Jewish population here to fight against Christmas, but that's the first thing, right? That's the main Christmas. But before then, we have Saint Nicholas Night on November 5th, which is practically a reverse Halloween. Teenagers and adults, if you get relatives to do it, dress up as a group. One of them is always Saint Nicholas, who they keep making white despite the man being black, but there's a different blackface issues here, because the Saint Nicholas has a party of a random number of angels and the devils. So, I hope you have behaved, because I'm the angel this year. The devils, yeah, they generally wear curly wigs and smear coal dust on their face, and they go, "That's coal dust," and it's like, my brother in Christ, that's blackface you're doing. So they skip that, which I guess at least some smart kids do. They go door to door to houses where they know younger kids are, and they kind of traumatize them. The devil threatens them if they've been naughty with putting them in their bag and dragging them to hell. So the angel has to step in and be like, "Hey, actually, kid, how about you bribe us with a Christmas carol or a nursery rhyme?" And so the kid does that and gets a little treat from that group, Or if it's relatives doing it for a family, then they get a lot of stuff, a lot of presents. Generally, some cash and a bunch of candy, and the mandarin orange. So I hope you all behaved, so that I don't have to get a devil to drag you down to hell. I did not get to schedule them. They're busy this time of year, getting all the cops and such to hell. But with that little cultural thing explained about December 5th, about St. Nick's, here's the actual Patreon thanks sections. $20, Aurora. $10, Phoenix Master Giovanni and Kylie the Healer Witch. $5, thank you, all of you, for your support. If you don't want to support me monthly on Patreon, you can do a one-time donation on Coffee or buy something of mine from itch.io. You can follow me on Twitter, on Tumblr, on Twitch, where I sometimes stream, but won't be streaming for long now or for a while due to my housing situation that I've been talking about for the past 3 videos now. I hope to see you next time when I release my next video. I cannot tell you when that will be. I can tell you that the current plan is to actually educate you about Yara Zimmerman. Because Czechs did Goncharov in the 70s with a whole ass dude. So, with that, I think, Katie, this has been Transfem Metro, and goodbye.